Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 139 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 65 of A Clash of Kings, Sansa 8.
And you know the drill by now, unless it's your first time. We're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out our show notes. They'll provide you some additional information that will be particularly handy if you're not reading along. And I'm going to skip over the How Are You, Mackelly, and go straight into, and we were just talking about this, people who are reading along or not reading along.
Right.
So I have a friend who's become a listener, and he said he was on episode 10, and he said he's bought the books. He'd never read the books before, but now as a result of listening to the first 10 episodes, he's bought the books and he's going to read them. So,
well, that's...
I think George Martin might owe us something.
Yeah, it seems we're generating some business for him. Now, of course, your friend is going to get through A Dance with Dragons and then going to get mad at you for leaving him stranded like the rest of us.
You know what? I like the way that falls on me.
Yes, you're the influence.
If only Simon and Mackelly would pull their finger out, George Martin would be finished with that book.
I blame you for me being stuck at the Kingkiller Chronicle, because you got me started down that road, and I've been stuck for many years waiting for Rothfuss to finish that, and I fully blame you for it.
You know what? In some ways, I actually think Rothfuss is more guilty of this than George Martin. Because in George Martin's defense, he has created... I mean, if you think of like the book being like the opposite of a funnel.
Right.
It's more like, it's a cone. It's just getting broader and broader. To actually write that next book now is so many threads, so complicated at that point. Rothfuss had a clear idea of what his 3 books were going to be from the get-go.
Yeah.
So he's just noodling. He's just not pulling his finger out.
The thing is you hear about all this stuff that George Martin is up to that is distracting him from writing.
That's where George Martin gets into trouble, yeah.
But you don't hear the same thing about Rothfuss. So, what's he up to that is preventing him from writing this final book?
I understand he's a family man,
Yeah, I guess.
I'm a family man, and I hold down a day job. And a second job.
I will say that the path your friend is taking, where he started listening to us, we were the gateway drug to the full A Song of Ice and Fire, is a similar path that a friend of mine took while we were still doing our shows on A Game of Thrones. And my friend stopped listening because he raced ahead and made it, I don't know where he is in the series now, but he's through A Clash of Kings. And so he's so far ahead, he has stopped listening to us.
Probably muttering about the two of us and why we're to blame for the lack of the 6th book.
Or what's taking us so long to catch up. Today is the first full day of the Ice and Fire Con in Mount Sterling, Ohio. That's what the IAFC means in our show notes there. I
thought it was a soccer club of some sort.
It could have been. I can see that. I can see your confusion. And so I've been on Twitter watching all the tweets and the pictures people are posting. And it looks like a lot of fun. So I really hope we can go next year. That would be super fun.
Pencil it in.
Well, I'm going to the beach at the end of the day. This evening we're leaving for the beach.
It's the thing. It's the done thing at this time of year.
Hopefully the weather will be nice.
Seems to be, right?
We're going free of charge. Friends of ours own a house down at the beach, and we're going with them down to their house. So you can't pass those opportunities up.
It's funny how similar we are.
Is that how you were there? That's
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, freeloaders, we bond together and then look for those who have cooler things than we do.
So I have a TV recommendation for you. I'm not sure how you get it. I think you have to pay for this. Like, you can get it through Amazon, but it's a pay kind of thing.
Okay.
And I think it's a book I've mentioned before on the podcast. The Luminaries. It was a book by Eleanor Catton.
I think maybe you have mentioned that, yeah. It
was made into a TV show. While I was at the beach, we watched that from start to finish. And it's very interesting. And I highly recommend both.
The book
So
and
the
the
four
show.
of us that were watching, 3 of us had read the book and 1 hadn't. And the 3 of us put together a crib sheet of characters and things for the 4th person. 'Cause
Right.
It's very complicated what goes on in that show. And the show kind of like, the book is not quite written linearly, but it's not too non-linear. It's basically, it starts at the middle of the story and goes to the end and then fills in what happened before the story started.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The TV show jumped around in time, so it was terribly confusing.
Oh, yes. I can
But-
see that. I can see that.
But really satisfying. Not perfect. And they kind of had to Game of Thrones it at the end because it's a big book. I mean, they had 6 hours, but it's a big book. And they tried to bring it all together in one kind of like exciting courtroom scene. But really very satisfying TV.
All right. Well, should I read the book first?
I don't know. It's a big book. It's. I believe it won the Booker Prize, which is, at least if you're British, it's considered the highest prize you can win in literature.
Okay.
And Eleanor Catton was the youngest ever winner, and it was also the biggest ever book to win it.
Oh, so it is a big
It is-
book.
It's of biblical proportions. This thing.
What am I talking about? I haven't. I'm reading. Oh shoot, what's it called? This is how long it's been since I've gotten to pick it up. The Martian author, his latest one.
Hail Mary Project.
Yes.
Project Hail Mary.
I'm reading that, and I haven't picked that book up in 2 weeks because I also have another book that I have to have a lot of thought go into. So if I tried to read that Luminaries and it's as big as you say, it might be 3 years before I get through it.
Spoiler free. Where are you in that book?
They are at the main character is at the new location
Okay.
and hanging with
Yes.
this.
Got it.
Okay, yeah.
Got it.
Wow. I was doing a lot of hand gestures behind the scenes here. Luckily, you picked up what I was putting down.
I loved that book.
Yeah?
I really enjoyed.
I'm hoping it picks back up. It was exciting at first. It's hit a bit of a lull, but it could be because I read it so sporadically that it's created a...
like 3 weeks and nothing's happened. Yeah, but it's only 4 pages.
Yeah, about that. That's about right, too.
All right, let's get down to business. How did
Yes.
we leave Sansa Stark? Last time we saw Sansa, as you probably recall, as they've been coming thick and fast, she was refusing the opportunity to escape King's Landing with the Hound, and learning that Stannis' forces had been routed by Tywin Lannister, Loras Tyrell, and somehow Renly Baratheon. She was also learning that Sir Dontos Hollard is a galoot. And not...
I love that word. I saw it in there when I read it. Before even hearing you say it, I was laughing to myself.
He's so hopeless. I mean, he's so... I mean, I occasionally say daft things, and I definitely drink a little bit, and then that exacerbates the saying daft things. But forgetting whose side I'm on to the person I'm trying to rescue... All right, Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this chapter?
All right. Well, the throne room is packed with lords and ladies in their finest attire, all vying for the best positions to watch today's rather self-congratulatory ceremonies. King Joffrey's easy to spot regardless, sitting high above them on the Iron Throne. However, Sansa has a front row view to it all. Kicking things off, a resplendent Lord Tywin rides through the hall on his warhorse. Dismounting at the base of the throne, he's greeted by his grandson and king.
Joff hands governance of the realm over to his grandfather, who solemnly accepts until your grace comes of age. After Joff places the hand's chain around his neck, Tywin settles at the small council table. Next comes Mace Tyrell and 2 of his sons, Sirs Garlan and Loras. In a show of gratitude for their part in the victory over Stannis Baratheon, Joffrey offers them each a favour.
Sir Loras asks to be added as a member of the Kingsguard. Joff gladly agrees. Next, Mace requests inclusion on the small council. Again, quick yes. Finally, Sir Garlan speaks of his sister Margaery, her unconsummated marriage to Renly Baratheon, and her love for Joff based on stories of his wisdom, courage, and chivalry. I don't know how he got through that with a straight face. He asks that Joff send for her from Highgarden and wed her.
The king, although flattered, rejects the proposal. He's already betrothed, and a king must keep his word. At this, Cersei and the High Septon vocally absolve him of any obligation to Sansa Stark for all to hear, on the grounds of the traitorous actions of her family. His path now cleared, he agrees to the marriage, to raucous cheers from those in attendance.
Sansa has been warned ahead of time not to show any signs of delight over this news. So, despite being internally elated, she dutifully puts on a sad face. Now, with all that out of the way, the show rolls on. Next, many are honored for their valiant deeds during the Battle of the Blackwater, starting with lords and knights and ending with free riders and squires. All receive lands, titles, gifts, or all three. Notably, Sir Lancel Lannister is awarded lordship of Castle Derry, although he's too injured to be present to accept.
But the biggest winner of the day is Peter Littlefinger Baelish. He receives not only the title of Lord of Harrenhal, oh, we have a new boss, but also Lord Paramount of the Trident. Sansa is confused, both because she hasn't heard anything he did worthy during the battle, but also because the reward seems worth less. The castle is cursed, and the title of Lord Paramount already belongs to her grandfather, Hoster Tully.
But before she can ponder the move for too long, the next act of the show begins. More than 600 new knights are made, due to the men's achievements in the battle. Once that lengthy process is over, they march in the prisoners of war. Those who changed sides when the fighting started are immediately forgiven and retain their titles and lands. Those who fought until the end for Stannis must beg for forgiveness and swear fealty to King Joffrey to keep what they own.
Most smartly go over to Joffrey's side peacefully. However, a few stay committed to Stannis. Two men are particularly vocal in their resistance, shouting down Joffrey as the true king. One man spews so much vitriol that Joff throws a fit and demands he be killed. In his excitement, Joff cuts his own arm on the blades of the Iron Throne and is whisked away by his mother and several maesters. Tywin, who stays cool and collected during the fiasco, finishes the procession of captives.
Back in her chamber, Sansa can hardly contain her excitement over being released from her betrothal to Joff. But she knows better than to show it. She screams into her pillow, and then enjoys the best-tasting meal she's had in ages. Afterward, she returns to the Godswood to meet with Sir Dontos Hollard. I can't get through that with a straight face.
Now that I've called him a galoot forevermore, you'll associate that with... Rather than sharing her excitement, he's morose. You see? He's always out of step with her.
Yeah. She needs to drink more. That's what it is.
Right, yeah. He explains that the Lannisters would never let her go. She's too important as a hostage. The only thing that's changed is if Joffrey wants her in his bed now, they'll make bastards instead of true-born children. But not to worry. Joffrey and Margaery's wedding day is the date chosen for their escape from King's Landing. Sansa feels it's too long of a wait, being a month off, as Margaery isn't in King's Landing yet.
Right.
Dontos begs her to be patient. He then gives her a beautiful silver and black amethyst hairnet. She'd rather have a ship, but he explains it's a magical hairnet. It holds justice and vengeance for her father. It is home.
Huh.
I'm not sure exactly what that means. Perhaps she's supposed to put it on Joffrey's head and everyone will laugh at him for wearing a hairnet?
Or maybe it's like the ruby slippers. She puts it on her head, clicks her heels 3 times, and...
Then why not put it on now?
Yes. Why do you... Maybe you have to wait to, for the full moon or something like that.
Can I jump in with pedantry? Because by the time we get to pedantry, I'll have forgotten this, and I didn't actually write this in pedantry, so, this will get forgotten. But
please, indulge us with pedantry.
What the heck happened to Renly Baratheon?
I had that I was going to ask that same thing.
He fought in this battle. He doesn't get any mention at all in the awards at the end of it.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So many men changed sides because Renly Baratheon was leading the charge against Stannis.
Renly changed sides of the Vale. He came back from the...
I guess maybe he could only stay for so long. And,
right, I guess so.
It was, it's quite the omission.
One thing, actually, before we go on that.
Yeah.
Who was the person who told us about Renly? Was it Sir Dontos Hollard?
It was.
I'm beginning to see why this was not worthy of mention in the next chapter.
That is a solid point. It might have been a drunken dream.
Exactly.
So yes, I like it. So the chapter starts with a description of those in attendance, and we get the regulars highlighted in the crowd pretty much in every scene where there's courtly members. It's Giles Rosby, Tanda Stokeworth and her daughters, and Jalabar Zoe, all pretty much is always around.
Who, I've got to say, the description of Jalabar Zoe's outfit makes him look like he looks like a chicken.
Yes.
I just feel like he's like parading around like a pigeon.
Yeah, the description was something about how beautiful and plentiful the feathers that he was wearing, that he looked like he was about to take flight. But, the thing about Jalabar Zoe is I've just been waiting for him to make an impact on the story. I mean, we've seen, Giles Rosby was involved with the whole Tommen escape from King's Landing plot. And Tanda Stokeworth has had some, some run-ins with this story. But so far, Jalabar Zoe, he's been around pretty much every description, every chapter that has
reminder
court.
Of what we know of him. He was here to try and get King Robert to help him regain some territory.
Yes,
in the Summer
he was
Isles.
A prince. He is a exiled prince from the Summer Islands, and he was hoping that Sir Robert would help him. I mean, King Robert would help him get his.
If King Robert could give him 10,000 gold pieces, then he'd be able to get his money out of the Summer Isles and give him 1,000,000.
Yes, that's what it is.
I am an exiled prince from the Summer Isles.
Yes, I feel like King Robert now. The amount of times I've been asked by exiled princes. Just a little bit of starter money, but the rewards, the rewards.
So now that Joffrey has defeated, I say Joffrey has defeated in the biggest air quotes ever. Yeah. Now that Joffrey has defeated his uncle Stannis, and his other uncle Renly has returned to the Nightlands.
Right. Yep. To ride with Khal Drogo.
Exactly. And he is free to stop wearing anything that remotely Baratheon. He is full on Lannister right now.
He sure is. There's, the description is like the reason we bring these up when we do is because they're in the description, and I think they're there for a reason. And the description of his attire is crimson samite with a black mantle studded with rubies. No, he's got a black mantle, but no mention of the black and golds of the Baratheons. And even so, what he does when the Tyrell trio first arrives, he puts a necklace around them that has, what is it? It's like gold roses, and then at the base of the gold roses is a ruby lion. And he says the flower supports the lion, as, you have supported the realm. But shouldn't that be a stag? He's Renly Baratheon. I mean, he's Joffrey Baratheon. So
you raise a good point.
He's not. They're not even hiding it anymore, like you just said. Not even trying.
But one thing is, so this whole scene sort of like represents a return to normalcy, or normality, if you will, in the throne room. But of course, this isn't feeding the hungry citizens of King's Landing. They're still out there. Now, they're no longer besieged, and so the gates are open, but a lot of damage has been done to the surrounding countryside. But actually, thinking about it, not that much, because I don't think Stannis was doing to the Stormlands and Crownlands what Tywin was doing to the Riverlands.
Yes. But the thing about that is, to your point, yes, this city just rioted very recently when the royals were out in public. So yes, there's definitely some unrest that is not fixed by them winning this war, you wouldn't imagine, unless all is forgiven by the Lannisters because they won this war, which I'd have to say, the man who just led who has just proclaimed the savior of the city, is the same man who led the destruction of the homeland of many of these refugees in the Riverlands that have flooded King's Landing. So, are they like, yay, you saved us from the destruction and famine caused by wait a second. It was you! You did that!
So, Tywin's arrived. I mean, we haven't seen an awful lot of Tywin because he's not a POV character, and so this scene is one of the first times we sort of get to see him in his pomp, and he seems like a very serious character, and it definitely seems to change the landscape for King's Landing. There'll be a lot less plotting against this hand of the king than there's been against the last two.
Exactly.
At least from the Lannisters.
Yeah, it felt like his arrival is like there's an undisputed adult finally in the room in King's Landing. And like you said, no one's going to question him, challenge him, work to try and subvert his rule like Cersei and Tyrion have been doing to one another, which, with him here, it makes the Lannisters feel much more dangerous. Of course, with him here and the Tyrell army, that doesn't hurt either.
Yes. So the Tyrells are represented by Mace Tyrell, who's Lord of Highgarden, Lord Paramount of Manda, Warden of the South, his sons Sir Garlan and Sir Loras. We've met Sir Loras, but this is the first time we're really getting to meet Sir Garlan the Gallant.
Yeah, I'll say about them real quick. We don't know them very well yet, but they seem to be very good at collecting really cool titles.
Those are pretty good titles right there.
Loras Tyrell is the Knight of Flowers, Garlan the Gallant, and Mace Tyrell is, Lord Paramount of the Mander, Warden of the South, and Lord of Highgarden. So they definitely have quite the collection there.
Yeah. So they're each offered a favour, and Loras wants to be a member of the Kingsguard. This I find a little bit surprising because of the three of them. I've got to imagine that these three had a conversation when Peter Baelish came to them. I'm assuming Peter Baelish came to them and said, "Hey, join our side. Things will be great." That there was some heartache over this because Loras clearly was in bed, if you will, with Renly Baratheon. Okay,
right,
and was very much Team Renly. Now he blames Stannis for Renly's murder, and so he's not Team Stannis. But Renly was in open rebellion against Joffrey.
Right.
I've got to think it's a little bit hard for him to be so keen on Joffrey that you're prepared to actually give up your entire life and future to be his Kingsguard.
Yes, I agree.
That bit strikes me as a little odd.
Yes, I agree. And on top of that, I know Loras has been to King's Landing not all that long ago, but maybe get to know Joff a little bit better before swearing to give your life for his. I'm not sure that as he gets to know Joff as King Joffrey, he might be like, yes, I want to give my life for that guy.
Yeah, if he was as close a confidant of Renly Baratheon as it appears he was, he would have heard some pretty bad things about Joffrey because Uncle Renly was no fan.
Right, he wasn't. We had early on in a Game of Thrones, when we first met Renly at Derry, we were questioning, why does he seem to have beef? Why do those two seem to have beef with one another?
It was never explained, but it was certainly there. And,
right.
and it wasn't like it was some hidden dark secret. He laughed in his face openly in public.
Yeah, right. That's true. So then Mace Tyrell is actually the next to speak, and he wants to be a member of the small council, which is quickly agreed upon. Again,
questioning the wisdom of this. You live in Highgarden, it's lovely, right? King's Landing is full of starving people, smelly, dirty. Why do you want to stay? Go home.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, I'll also mention that this is not the full allotment of Tyrell men in this family present here. Missing from this trio is the oldest son of Mace Tyrell, Willis. He is actually the heir to Highgarden. He's not a knight, so he didn't fight in the battle, so maybe that's why he's not here. We'll learn more about him, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I'll just mention, just to fill in any blanks here, there is another son missing from this picture.
So Garland's request is that he wants Margaery to marry Joffrey, and Renly went to war before their marriage was consummated.
Did he go to war before there was opportunity to consummate that marriage?
That's not the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it seemed like plenty of opportunity when we saw them through Kat's POV. They were just kind of hanging out, making their meandering their way toward King's Landing. Seemed like plenty of opportunity there. So,
I mean, you know that the TV show made it clear why this was, that
yes.
he was in love with a different Tyrell, Loras in particular. Whereas with the book never said that. There are some clues to it, but the books never actually said it. But
true.
But yes, it seems that it's definitely possible that the marriage wasn't consummated, and therefore she's still chaste and ready for marrying the king.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'd imagine she would want to.
Why would she want to? That is a good question. And I'll say this for the Tyrells, they didn't waste this opportunity. They jumped right in with both feet. Kingsguard, Small Council, Queen. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah. They were offered an alliance. They're fully committing to it here. I guess
sure.
They figure might as well get into a position of strength as quickly as possible.
Garland talks about the fact that Margaery has heard the tales of the wisdom, courage, chivalry of the king. Yeah. but has been told to pretend she hasn't.
Yes, she loves him from afar. We could keep it that way.
I can't remember the actor who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones, but he does a great job in that scene.
Something Gleeson.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I always think of him very fondly because I don't know if this is still true, but he wanted to retire from acting after this because he just found the whole thing of being Joffrey such a horrible experience.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
but he does an excellent job when he's hearing that. He's like glancing around, like, oh, yeah. I bet she has. He was, and the fact that he's done absolutely nothing to justify these pretend tales just doesn't enter his head at all. He's like,
oh boy, is she gonna be disappointed when she gets down? Oh man, but even in the book here, he puts on a good show. Apparently, the character is as deft an actor as the actor who portrays him, because he puts on a good show about, oh, wow, I did not see that coming. I'm so flattered, but no, I couldn't. I'm betrothed already, and as a king, I must keep my word.
But so the small council first give him permission, but he still fights the fight. No, but the gods have said, the promise was made in front of the gods. So then the High Septon comes in, the whole thing being stage managed, and he says, no, because the Starks were unfaithful, that means that any promises to them are no longer binding, so.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, they sure heap some dirt on the Starks' name here. Drag them, basically just, the Starks are trash. You're fine. Don't even worry about it. Just go ahead and marry someone else. But, like we've said multiple times on, throughout this, the history is written by the victor. And right now, the Lannisters are sitting the Iron Throne, so they can write it how they want.
They're the victor south of the Riverlands. They're not yet the victor north of the Riverlands.
True.
Their homelands are being ravaged by Robb still, so.
Very true, very true. And of course, from a surface level, of course, it's understandable why Cersei says these things about the Starks. First of all, she has a vested interest in painting her family in the best light possible, and in so doing, trashing their opponents, the Starks. But even the High Septon piles on. He says something along the lines of, before the Starks revealed their falseness and something about their crimes against the realm. But of course, we learned in a Tyrion chapter a few chapters ago that this High Septon, because the previous High Septon died in the riot, this High Septon was elevated to High Septon by the Lannisters, and he was actually a pick of Tyrion's. So it makes a little more sense.
Yes, why he knows that the gods are approving what the Lannisters want to do.
Yes, exactly.
The Queen, just to show how spontaneous this whole conversation was, the Queen warned Sansa in advance not to show any positive reaction to the end of her betrothal.
She loves that planned out spontaneity.
Yeah, and God bless Sansa. She managed to. I think what I would have done if I was Sansa was go the whole hog of have my knees buckle and crash to the floor as if I'm crushed by the news. You know.
Yes, that's what it is. I gotta say, this whole chapter is just so galling. How Joff and Tywin, like literally, Joff calls Tywin the savior of the city, and the two of them basically take all the credit for winning this war, when Tyrion put in all the work and effort to put the city in a position to win the war.
True. In fact, yeah, I mean, they certainly deserve some credit because Tyrion alone would have lost, But
yes, right.
Had it not been for Tyrion's preparations, the city might have been lost before the Tyrells and Tywin and Renly arrived to save the day.
Yes, exactly. Unless they were waiting for like we talked about last Sansa chapter, I guess. Unless they were waiting for Stannis to split his forces, some on the northern bank, some on the southern bank. If they really did get there right at the 11th hour, then yes, had it not been for, and even if they had showed up, if it hadn't been for the wildfire plot, Stannis would have still had this enormous navy at his disposal, and thousands of more men. So
right.
Anyway, so speaking of the navy, Paxter Redwine and his sons, as Sansa puts it, Horror and Slobber, are honored next after the Tyrells are done. And I gotta say, Horace Redwine has had a bit of a rough go compared to his brother Hobber. Sansa notices that Horace is limping from a wound he took in the battle. Hobber seems to be all right, and Horace had to remain behind in the Red Keep as the hostage, while Hobber got to go prancing off with Littlefinger back home.
But that poses a question for me. So, who wounded him? Which side? Because if you're being held hostage by someone and then you're marched out to fight for them,
yes, I know.
Possible you might.
Well, yes. When I first read this, I thought I had it backward. I thought, oh, Horace was the one that went. I thought it must have been Horace that went with Littlefinger, because then it would make sense for him to be out in the battlefield fighting. But I guess knowing
that his brother was going to be fighting on the other side, fighting for his side, he wouldn't switch sides, I guess.
Yeah, yes, right. So they let him out, so the Lannisters just let him out to fight, but they wouldn't have. The Lannisters in the Red Keep would not have known.
Oh, very good point.
That the Redwines were even out there.
Perhaps what happened is they said, "Look, we're going to let you out of the cell, but we can't trust you because obviously, you're still a hostage to make sure the Redwines. So we're just going to stick a sword through your calf."
That's what it was.
Come on, put me back in the cell.
They went a little Vargo Hoat on him, cut his left foot off.
Yeah, that is pretty rough on old Horror.
It's been quite a horror for him so far.
Thinking about it, though, honestly, being trapped in the Red Keep, the Red Keep, there were some privations, but they were still eating pretty healthily there, right? His brother had to ride across the continent on a horse. Now, that level of freedom would come with sort of quite a sore bottom,
Possibly, yes.
I'm not sure how long I would have lasted. I think I might have turned back after a day and said, "No, keep me."
Good point. I could see. Yeah, sure. So the small council has expanded a little bit. We were down at one point after Littlefinger rode out. We were down to the small council consisting of Cersei, Varys, and Tyrion by my count.
Yeah.
And now we've seen in this chapter, Lord Tywin is sitting there. It's mentioned that his brother Kevin Lannister is seated next to him, so you would assume he's also joined the small council. And Mace Tyrell asks and is granted a spot on the small council, and now Littlefinger has returned. So they've expanded. There's still plenty of spots left, but they were getting down to pretty much bare bones there at one point. Basically just two Lannisters staring at Varys.
Yep, so with a series of new lords. We got Lancel as Lord of Castle Derry, because the last actual Derry died, right? There's no more
Yeah,
Derrys.
well, the last male Derry, Lyman, the son of Raymond Derry, died in the fighting in the Riverlands. There are 2 female. He's got 2 aunts. Like, I think it was just last chapter, the Arya chapter, I mentioned his aunt Mariah Derry is the mother of Roose Bolton's new wife.
That's right, you did mention that. I remember it well.
But he might want to check out his new abode before he agrees to this particular plan.
Because Roose Bolton has told them to go and beat it to snot.
To burn the castle. So, yeah, he might want to go at least do a walkthrough before he signs off. But of course, he can't right the moment because he's too injured to even show up to the ceremony.
But actually, just one other thing, it would be politically prudent of Lancel to marry one of those 2 aunts, I would think.
Yeah, well, one's married to a Frey. I can't remember about the other one off the top of my head. But...
Okay, well, the Freys are the enemy now. Can annul that wedding.
True, yeah.
But she must be a generation older, right? Because she's the mother of Roose's wife.
Yes, Walda's mother. So yeah, she might be. But hey, Tyrek Lannister was married to baby Ermistad, who's a toddler. So
and Littlefinger is the new Lord of Harrenhal and Lord Paramount of the Trident.
Yeah.
So he definitely got significant rewards for this. I mean, if he brokered this deal to bring the Tyrells in, then he really does deserve some reward, because that's a make or break point for this.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems clearly the end result was what he set out to do. It's not clear yet what role he played in it. We did see those banners of, I think it was House Rowan and House Oakhart north of the Mander, which suggests now, we wondered why before they were, what they were out there doing, but we now know that clearly they were sent to meet with Tywin. But was that independent of Littlefinger's proposal, or was it because of Littlefinger's proposal of the alliance?
Is it a good reward? I mean, it seems that Harrenhal really is cursed. I mean, we're on to our 4th Lord of Harrenhal in the book. It's still vast holdings which make you wealthy. He doesn't ever have to go there. In the same way that Mace Tyrell is now going to be on the Small Council, but Lord of Highgarden, he could be Lord of Harrenhal in absentia and just have the check sent to him every month.
Well, that's true. Clearly, he has the self-confidence to believe I'm the one that can control this castle. I mean, the Wentz held it for a while, but yes, it's been through so many hands. But maybe he's just really into flipping real estate. He's going to go in, put in new hardwood floors and, change out the bathrooms and then sell it for a much higher price than what he paid for it. But so Sansa's totally confused by why he would even want Harrenhal, but she's also confused by the naming of him as Lord Paramount of the Trident, because on 2 levels. 1, the position is currently held by her grandfather, and 2, the Lannisters don't hold Harrenhal, and they don't really have a foothold in the Riverlands either. So.
She must know that the Lannisters are sort of at war with her family. And so, yes, the replacing of her family with new people, even before her family have been informed of the fact they've been stripped of their titles, is not that surprising, surely.
Right. Yes, that's very true. And you wonder, is he still holding resentment toward the Tullys for the treatment they showed him after his duel with Brandon Stark, when Hoster had him booted out and sent back to the Fingers?
But then wouldn't he hold out for a river run?
Right. He could have asked for that. That was kind of what I was asking. Like, is this reward sufficient? Why is he asking for this old rundown castle in a war-torn region that's huge and hard to maintain and thought to be cursed? Yes, I mean, while they're giving away these titles that they really can't officially give away because there's still people that are in those roles, might as well make him Lord of...
Maybe he's trying to sort of like go up this real estate ladder from Harrenhal's a good step,
Yes, that was my other question. Does he have a bigger plan? Start with Harrenhal, move to somewhere else, or some bigger title? So, but maybe could this all be a plan to get revenge for the treatment that he was shown after his, by the hands of the Tullys? So that was my point there.
Philip Foot from the Westlands is now the new Lord of Night Song, which is in the Stormlands or Dornish Marches. He killed Bryce Caron in single combat, and so he was given the titles and lands of House Caron.
Yeah. Now, we know Bryce Caron a little bit because he was Bryce the Orange of Renly's Rainbow Guard, but he did go over to Stannis after Renly's, what we thought was Renly's death.
Because you've got the member of the Rainbow Guard called Bryce the Orange, it feels like they each had a colour, but of course they actually wore rainbow cloaks, right? They weren't a rainbow between them, they were each rainbows, right?
But the final guy, he's technically not Lord. We mentioned there were some new lords, but Lothar Brune, who's his family's from the Crownlands, is given a castle to be named later in the Riverlands after the fighting is done. And so what he did was he killed, or at least so he claims, 50 Fossaway men-at-arms, captured John Fossaway of the Green Apple Fossaways, and killed Sirs Brian and Edward of the Red Apple Fossaways. I gotta say, that is one heck of an accomplishment.
There's a scene in Blackadder where he misses an entire battle, and then he's asked who he killed in the battle, and basically he says, well, who don't you have accounted for yet? And so they start reeling off a list, and he said, yes, that one, that one, that one. And it finishes with, and the Bishop of Bath and Wells, and he says, we'll never walk again, and he said, we'll conduct the Thanksgiving ceremony.
That's what happened with John Fossaway. He was like, John Fossaway, yes, him too, is captive. I took him captive. I did it. But anyway, he's technically not a lord. He's been raised to a landed knight. He's been knighted.
Maybe the castle to be named in the Riverlands is Riverrun.
Right, yes, that's where they're going with that. Now, I'll say about this plan here, about these new lords and where they've positioned them, it's kind of smart what the Lannisters are doing. They're rewarding these loyalists with lands in areas that have recently rebelled, which strengthens the hold on that region. They gave Derry to Lancel, Harrenhal to Littlefinger, and Lothar Brune is also getting a house or a castle at some point in the Riverlands. So 3 new lords that are loyal to them in the Riverlands, and then Philip Foot is taking over Night Song, which is in the Stormlands, where the Stannis Baratheon has a bit of a foothold anyway. So kind of lessens the chance of further rising up against them if you put your people in place.
I also think there's another aspect to it, which is these things need to be won. They're not won yet. And so by giving them to people who are willing to fight for you, you're basically recruiting them to keep fighting for you.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah, they want their castle.
You're lord of that castle in the river, and well, go get it. And then start sending us taxes.
Yes.
So Tyrion doesn't get a mention, but Sansa has heard that he's dying from the terrible cut to the head that he sustained in the battle. So, well, I mean, from last we saw Tyrion, this is good news. At least for Tyrion, because he could well have been dead, so dying is better than dead.
Right, good news, bad news situation there, I guess.
Yes.
But how does he not get a mention? Lancel wasn't present to receive his gratitudes and platitudes, so why couldn't they have at least said, and hey, Tyrion did a great job too?
Well, I think the answer to that is quite clear, Mackelly. I'm surprised you've forgotten. Because he rubbed everybody who's dishing out these gifts the wrong way.
True. Yeah,
That's
true.
the problem.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. And I'm guessing that at least one of the people dishing out the gifts tried to have him murdered during the battle.
One of multiple options in this room possibly tried to have him killed. I think of the people we named, 3 of them, possibly 4 of them, are in this room right now.
Right.
So my question, I guess, then is, what happens to Tyrion if he survives? You know, Tywin's taken the job that he so much enjoyed holding. Remember that night when he was laying there in Shay's bed and he was thinking about how he's got the job and the power that he loves and the woman that he loves, and that everything's coming up roses for Tyrion right now, and things have taken a bit of a turn, but that job is now gone and the power possibly gone as well.
He is still heir to Casterly Rock, right?
Theoretically, I guess. I mean, Jaime's taken a vow.
Even if he gets out, yeah, he's still a Kingsguard.
So theoretically, now whether Tywin sees it that way or not is yet to be determined. But
right, true enough.
Yeah, like I said, there's still spots on the small council to be filled. They could give him a spot on the small council, certainly.
I suspect he's on the outs. That's not going to happen. He might be given the drains.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Nothing more than that.
So some other people get knighted that aren't, or some other people get rewarded and applauded for their efforts that aren't being made into lords. And those are 3 captains of 3 of the king's warships were honored for basically just surviving. Because it was around like 45 to 50 warships in their fleet before the battle, and they're down to 3. So I guess it makes sense. Those 3 survived. Either they did something right, or they were the ones that were like, we're going to be way upstream guarding in case they try and come from that direction.
In defense of these 3, they volunteered for Operation Certain Death. Like, we want you to go out there, be hugely outnumbered, and then once they've engaged with you and are killing you, we'll throw wildfire at you.
You guys in? All right, let's do it. But on top of that, more than 600 knights are made, from the accomplishments of the men in the battle here, which, according to Sansa, takes a really long time to go through, because they're all being dubbed knights by the 3 Kingsguard, and there's only 3 present.
Do they get the swords on the shoulder? Is that the sort of typical?
Yeah, I guess so.
Something like that. I think what they should do is do it like a conga line. Each one puts a... You can do it in one fell swoop.
Just
like dominoes.
Everyone lay down. But you know what struck me when I read that part is there's still been no mention of Bronn. No sign of him.
Oh, yeah.
He
could be one of these. Sansa wouldn't even recognize him.
Well, that's true. Yes, he very well could be one. He very well could. But the last we heard of Bronn doing anything in this battle was him driving the oxen that raised the boom chain.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm just wondering where he was when Tyrion rode out to defend the King's Gate. All props to Pod. Pod did the best he could, and hey, it seems very likely he is the one that saved Tyrion from...
He certainly saved him from immediate death,
yes,
if not from death.
But if I have my choice, I'd probably prefer Bronn be my personal protector during that battle.
It's a very good question, actually. I mean, if I was Tyrion, I would say, hey, stick by me while I go out and fight, because Bronn's a real fighter.
Right. Yes.
That's strange. I wonder if he's riding that oxen like as fast as he can out of there.
Maybe. I've had enough.
This does not look like it's going well. Come on, Daisy.
So then, once they get through all the accolades and rewards for things that people did well on the Lannister side, now they trot out the prisoners of war. One of which is Lord Estermont, which is kind of an interesting situation, I think, because...
Why so?
Because Lord Estermont, depending on which version that you accept, there's different versions of who he is in the various appendices of the books. He is either Joffrey's great-grandfather on his father's side, Cassana Estermont's dad, who is the Baratheon boys' Robert, Stannis, and Renly's mom, which would make Lord Estermont Joffrey's grandfather, theoretically, or great-grandfather, theoretically. You follow me?
I was following, yeah.
Joffrey believes that Robert is his father.
Yes. Obviously, buying into that fiction, yes.
Lord Estermont is Robert's grandfather, which would make him...
But also, of course, Stannis's...
Yes.
Grandfather,
exactly, and
father too,
and he sided. So I'll get to that in a second. But the other option is that he could be one of the. I can't remember which of the appendixes says that it is that Lord Estermont is actually Cassandra's brother, which would make him Joff's great uncle
and Stannis' uncle.
Stannis' uncle, yes. So either way, he is family as far as Joffrey believes, because we believe that Joffrey doesn't believe that he is a product of incest. He thinks Robert was his true father. So he would believe that this is family here. And this Lord Estermont originally sided with Renly, then changed his allegiance to Stannis. And, so he seems to have no faith in Joff or believes that Joff was born of incest. So does Joff have a soft spot for his family here or not?
So what befalls him? I've forgotten.
Nothing. That doesn't say anything. So you assume he must have bent the knee to Joffrey. But
yeah.
But I wonder, does he think, well, you are my uncle / great grandfather, great uncle / great grandfather, whatever you were, and you didn't back me and carry out something against him, or does he have a soft spot for him? I don't know.
So, the lords that continue to fight have to beg for forgiveness, and Joffrey's going to like that, begging for forgiveness.
He sure will. It's like catnip for him.
Yeah. 2 knights, one of whom is definitely a Florent, the other one might also be a Florent, refuse to bend the knee. They praise Stannis and their Lord R'hllor. This outburst catches Lannisters off guard because I think they thought everyone was going to capitulate. I would.
Yeah, I don't think they could possibly be aware of just how loyal Queen Selyse Florent's men are. Around Davos, we've heard King's men and Queen's men be referred to, and the Queen's men are the ones that are really fervent believers of R'hllor. I don't imagine they could have guessed just how loyal these men are, especially to R'hllor. So I bet that caught them a little bit off by surprise.
Yeah, true that. And it makes Joffrey throw a tantrum, and in so doing, calling for their heads, like the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. He manages to cut his own arm kind of nastily on his own throne.
Right.
Which is, again, it's a silly idea. If you're going to make a throne out of swords and get a dragon to melt all the swords, melt the sharp ones.
I know, at least dull the edges a little bit. Yeah, it's certainly not a great look for him in front of his...
What is, Mackelly? What is?
That's true. Yeah, is there anyone
Head
left?
on a spike. That's a great look for Joffrey.
Yeah, I guess it's good that his new fiancé was not here to see his wisdom, courage, and chivalry in this instance.
Cersei, of course, runs to him because she still babies him. Tywin, on the other hand, is still a stone. And with one motion, he calls for the men's death, who refuse to bend the knee, as you'd expect.
Yep, like I said, the example of the adult in the room. Total command, no panic, full poker face. It starts at the top. The boss stays calm. Everyone else is more likely to stay calm, and he showed why he is the patriarch of the family. Yeah.
So then we have another meeting between Sansa and Dontos in the Godswood. Sansa is cock-a-hoop that she is no longer betrothed to Joffrey. Of all the things that can happen to anyone in the world, being unbetrothed to Joffrey Baratheon is pretty much a high point for anyone.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Dontos, on the other hand, is somber.
Sober?
Is that sober?
No.
Cheap gag. He explains that nothing's changed. She's not free. Joffrey can still drag her to his bed if he wants, but if she has children from that, they will be bastards now, not princes and princesses of the realm. But that can hardly be the top of her concerns at this point, I would feel.
Right. Yeah, he paints a kind of dire picture here. He's trying to really tamp down her excitement. But I don't know. Personally, I find it kind of hard to believe that Tywin would tolerate Joff doing the things he's been doing to Sansa.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have tolerated it had she been his betrothed. And now she isn't his betrothed, he's going to tell him to forget about her, you know. But of course, Tywin will be much more strategic about the fact he's got a Stark, you know.
Right, yes. But, you know, I will say about Joff, I rarely come to Joff's defense. I think this might be a first. We've seen Joff do horrible, cruel things to pretty much everyone, but especially Sansa. But one thing we haven't seen from him is sexual impulses. So,
yes,
you know, no attempts to force himself on her. He's not had her sexually abused by anyone else. The closest thing we've seen is when he had her stripped, but then, you know, Tyrion stopped it. And I personally think that was as much about her humiliation than him having a sexual urge to see her naked. So my point of all that is, you know, Dontos says he could still have you in his bed if he wants. I don't know that's. Of course, it could be a concern. Joff's a monster. I just don't know that it fits with what we've seen so far. Yeah,
she's probably more. You're absolutely right. She's probably more in danger from him wanting to commit violence to her. But A, it's less likely now because she's not going to be in his mind as much, and B, Tywin won't allow it because she's such a valuable prisoner.
Yes, I agree.
So Dontos says that that they're going to escape. That he's going to effect the escape on the wedding night of Joffrey and Margaery. Margaery is not in King's Landing. She's got to get there for the wedding, so that's at least another month. It seems like it's not a terrible time to do it because there will be plenty of distractions there. There will be revelry and the city will be abuzz, you assume.
Plenty of strangers is his part of his argument.
Right. So hopefully this can work out. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure it has to be quite such a long wait. I mean, do you think there's plenty of opportunity between now and then to escape unnoticed, especially now that Margaery Tyrell will be entering the picture? You know, everyone's got things going on. Cersei's possibly involved in wedding planning. Tyrion maybe dead, maybe dying, at the very least facing a long recovery. Tywin busy fixing the damage in the city.
Tywin's too calculated.
Yes.
He's going to say, all right, job one, lock that door.
Yes.
She goes nowhere.
I was going to say that same thing. He is the concern because on one hand, there's could be good, stopping Joff from torturing or tormenting her. I could see possibly him doing it. On the other hand, could be bad, his arrival for her. His arrival for her could be bad. He's cold, calculating, will use her to the best advantage possible, no matter what that might be.
Right, but probably that will be captive but safe.
Yes, but of course, if it needed to come to harm for her, he would not hesitate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tyrion might have hesitated. Cersei probably not so much hesitated, but I don't think Tywin will do whatever suits them best with Sansa.
Right, for sure. So Dontos gives her this beautiful hairnet, and he says it's justice you hold and vengeance for your father. I don't see how a hairnet can affect justice, but again, what am I to know? I'm not a drunken fool, always.
It is quite the ominous statement. Not you not being a drunken fool. The hairnet thing being justice and vengeance.
Do you have some background for us, Mackelly?
I did gather a little together. So, like we talked about, when Joff throws a fit about the knight disparaging him and cuts his arm during his tantrum, the knight says that it's the throne denying him as the true king. And then on her way back to her chamber, Sansa thinks that the Iron Throne can be, as she puts it, perilous cruel to those not meant to sit it. And there are several examples of this throughout the nearly 300 years of the throne's history. During the Dance of the Dragons, when Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen first took King's Landing from her half-brother King Aegon II, she sat the Iron Throne for the first time. But afterward, she was seen to have cuts on her legs and on her left hand. To some, it was a sign that she was not her father's true heir. Speaking of her, and Aegon II's father, King Viserys I actually lost a couple of fingers to the throne. Now, he just stumbled while on the throne and cut his left hand to the bone and ended up having to lose some fingers because of it. So, wasn't necessarily a referendum on his abilities, but just showing you the throne is dangerous. But the Mad King Aerys II also had issues with the Iron Throne, seemingly fighting him frequently. In fact, the throne cut him so often that his less nefarious nickname, not the Mad King, was King Scab, because he always had wounds in various stages of healing due to his run-ins with the throne. But wounds aren't the worst of the concerns a king or queen faces when sitting the Iron Throne. The most extreme example of throne-related calamities involves King Maegor Targaryen. He was actually found dead on the Iron Throne. His arms were slashed open from wrist to elbow, and one of the throne's blades went through the back of his neck and came out below his chin. To this day, no one's sure if it was foul play staged to look like the throne, or if the Iron Throne itself did the deed. So ultimately, even in death, King Maegor was misunderstood.
I knew you were headed.
Knew I was going to work it in there somewhere.
You know what I'm going to say, actually? Mad King Aerys II, you got to feel for Aerys I, because he was, in life, he was known as King Aerys. But because of his subsequent namesake,
right,
he's thought of as Mad King Aerys I. Because, hey, I wasn't mad.
I wasn't mad.
I was just King Aerys. Comparison with the television show, the throne room scene is entirely reproduced, even down to the horse pooping, which we didn't mention, but the horse poops, and that happened in the TV show too. Tywin is made hand, Baelish gets Harrenhal. The Tyrells are represented simply by Loras and Margaery. She's there.
Okay.
And so Loras is the one who sort of makes the case for her. She's still innocent. Her dress was not. At one point, she says something like, "You can see my heart." I was like, "You almost can." And also, that's what's her name, Natalie Dormer or something, is the actress who plays Margaery.
Something like that.
She has a very sultry voice, and you can see sort of Joffrey's getting hot under the collar as she's talking. So.
I can't really blame him, if I'm being honest.
So Loras does not ask to be a member of the Kingsguard. The only thing that they want is Margaery to be queen. No High Septon. Maester Pycelle says that he's consulted with the High Septon and says the same lines.
Okay.
Baelish makes the same joke in the TV show as he made in the book about because he's given Harrenhal for him and his sons and grandsons forever, kind of thing, and he said, "I'll better go about making some sons." Okay,
he gets chuckles throughout the court.
Exactly, of course. Then when it cuts to Sansa, Sansa leaves as quickly as she can, and as she's leaving, she can't help but break out into a big smile. She's kept a straight face while it was all going on,
right?
But Peter Baelish intercepts her, and hot on the heels of him saying this about having sons, his conversation with her is creepy because it's Baelish talking to Sansa. It's always creepy.
It is.
But it's just what you'd expect. You know, he sort of like talks about how fond he was of her mother and all that kind of thing. And
right.
Makes her skin crawl. Sansa does not meet with Sir Dontos at this point. I believe she will eventually get that gift from him, but not at this point. Pedantry, nothing really, apart from Renly. What happened to Renly? It's weird.
Yes. It is. No mention of him.
Yeah. Perhaps Sir Dontos he thought that Tyrion was Renly because he was riding on two,
Right, yes. It's long doing the old hi-ho silver
exactly
move.
News and notes, what do you got for us?
So George Martin has a cruel sense of humor. His most recent Not a Blog post, which is the name of his blog, has this heading: The Winds of June.
Mm-hmm.
Which got many people excited, as we've been waiting more than a decade for winds news. But no, he wasn't talking about the winds of winter. Rather, he was talking about Dark Winds, the TV show he's an executive producer on, along with Robert Redford and a few others. It premieres June 12th on AMC and AMC Plus. I will say I did watch the trailer since it was shared there, and it does look pretty good. But, maybe someday he'll share news of the other wins that we are much more interested in hearing about.
next week, so this is, I'm right in saying this, next week we're having a guest help us write the summary part of our podcast. Is that right?
That's right. We've got a treat in store for us, I guess you'd say.
That's going to be great.
Yes. Well, I've already seen it. It's finished. I saw it. It looks good stuff. So yeah, we'll next week we'll have a guest summary, a summary written by one of our...
We're still going to be doing the reading.
Yes,
but right, okay, good.
Right, written by one of our most favorite listeners of them all. Yes.
We have a review from Kendromeda on podchaser.com. After almost a year of listening while driving a supply van across my state for work, I finally managed to catch up on every episode, and wow, do I not regret it. This has to be one of the best discussion podcasts out there. The two leads are wonderful together and have some amazing banter you could only get from longtime friends. And we consider you all longtime friends.
That's right. We've been doing this almost 2 years now.
I especially appreciate the theory crafting they do, making sure to only use the information the reader would have at this point, even if it's clear they know the whole series already. Clear in Mackelly's case. It's extremely refreshing to listen to. I highly recommend to anyone with even a passing interest in A Song of Ice and Fire, and eagerly await more. S&M equals good podcast. Well, thank you, Kendromeda. That's really nice of you.
Thank you so very much. That was... It put a big smile on my face when I actually read it to Stacy. She happened to be in the room, and I was like, get a hold of this. Good stuff.
And how did she react?
She was like, oh, good, cool.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. That's all we expect.
Yeah, exactly. Well, by the way, we've been doing this more than 2 years. I said almost 2 years. We've been doing this 2.5 years now.
Have we really?
We have. I started to say more than 2 years, and I was like, that can't possibly be right, but it is. We started in October of 19, and we are in April of 22.
Wow, 2.5 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kendromeda. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off topic. I just realized I said that incorrectly. So, thank you very much.
So, lots of good news for various Lannister lackeys, and with the one notable exception of Tyrion Lannister.
Yes.
Who did all he could for the cause, but gets nothing for it.
Yeah, even Lancel got a shout out and got some rewards for it. I think, like you said, I think Tywin's horse had the right of it. It's a bunch of bullcrap, a bunch of horse crap.
This is horse crap. So we don't know what's going to happen to Tyrion if he does pull through. Tywin's back in power, and I can't imagine he wants to be around Cersei anymore. I mean, clearly he's going to suspect that she was his assassin.
You would think. Yeah, she'd definitely be right up there near the top of the culprits. But, going in, he knew the position was temporary, but he fell in love with the power of the position.
Yep.
And, we all knew that it was likely not a permanent situation. I guess maybe, he kind of thought maybe it would be.
Maybe he'd go tour the world with Shay.
Right. Yeah. Got that Lannister gold.
Exactly. So the Tyrells are diving headfirst into this alliance.
Sure are.
They are. Which, I mean, hey, they put a lot of skin in the game. They deserve their rewards. Not sure the rewards I would have chosen. It was just new titles and being a Kingsguard, which is a lifetime appointment to be a bodyguard, and Margaery has to marry Joffrey. It's
yes.
None of those things I would choose.
Now you put it that way. I believe the line was, "Any boon you wish of me." Right. This is what you choose? Yeah, right. You put it very well there.
But good news for Sansa, she's off the hook for marrying Joffrey, which has got to be, which was always daft, but well, it still isn't that daft, because it still could re-cement the alliance of the Seven Kingdoms if they could somehow convince the North that this was legitimate. But I don't think they ever will.
Right, yeah. And so this is the last Sansa chapter of the book, and unlike Arya's final chapter, not much happens for Sansa herself in this one. She's pretty much just a spectator of the aftermath of the battle, watching the Lannisters congratulate themselves. But she did get relieved of her betrothal from Joffrey, so, that is something. And But according to Dontos, even that doesn't change much until, at least until the wedding day when she can finally leave. But, so, she ended A Clash of Kings pretty much how she started it.
Yeah.
Lannister, a prisoner to the Lannisters in the Red Keep, which, at the surface level is not great character development. But, if you look deeper, she has become a stronger person. She's faced so many trials at the hands of Joffrey and Cersei. She's survived and grown and no longer the naive, innocent child from a Game of Thrones that we remember her as. So, even though she's still under the thumb of the Lannisters, like she was in the first chapter of this book, it's, she's less afraid. She's a little more cautious and calculating of her actions and words. She stands up to Joffrey and Cersei a little more than she did back then, a little wiser, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's all true, and I think actually what has happened in this chapter, the ending of the betrothal, will help that as well, because then that's got to give her confidence. The fact that you always had that hanging over you must have been debilitating, and to have that taken away, you've got to feel a little bit more optimistic about the future. But yeah, right, there's 3 ways you can help us. You could go out and leave us a glowing review. There's no better advertising. We'd appreciate that. You could buy some merch for yourself at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com, or you can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Even become a sustainer there. Big thank you to those who already have.
That's right. And as always, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. Go out and follow us on Twitter at ghostharrenhal, where I'm sharing all the Ice and Fire Con news. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, please come join the conversation on Discord.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.